everyone, and welcome to a completely impromptu stream on a subject that we are all familiar with here on the Scribe Light channel at Moonbase of the Scribe Tribe, and that is TEDx. Now, oftentimes, I will come across TEDx presentations that warn me at the beginning that this TEDx presentation does not conform to the guidelines in some way, shape, or form. Oftentimes it's somebody putting out some kind of medical opinion or philosophy or some kind of, I don't know, science-based something that isn't necessarily grounded in reality, something like that. It's always curious to me that TEDx would post such presentations that fall outside of their own content guidelines. But what are those content guidelines? Well, fortunately, by accident, I came across the actual real official form the other day, and just for the heck of it, I thought we'd go through it. It's not exactly a long document, so it shouldn't take me too long to do. I've got a little extra time today before I have to go off to a dentist appointment, so that's why I thought it might be a good time to educate ourselves on what exactly I should be expecting from a TEDx presentation, and also, just out of any morbid curiosity, how often we might see things that go outside of the TEDx content guidelines but are still put up on TEDx's page, but not given any kind of warning. We'll find that out together. But who's joining me for this surprise live stream? Poker Pierce, hello. Spoonie the Rebel, hello. Ryan R, hello. Michael Sander, hello. Brittany Holland, hello. Lexi Mads, hello. You missed me. Wait a second. What's this? What is Lexi saying? I missed you. Thankfully, power and internet are back. Were you... Are you in Florida? If you are, I'm glad you're in good shape. And if you missed me, it's only because your aim was off. But I'm glad that you're here, Lexi, because we're going to learn something today. I think. Maybe. Yes, Florida. Okay, well, I'm glad that you're safe. Hope everything is as well as can be expected there. Oh, boy. Not a pretty picture over there, but hoping everybody is making the best of it, whatever the heck that means. Not to be too platitude about it. Darren Root, hello. Keldrig, hello. All right, so the TEDx content guidelines, and let's follow along and see if we can think of any examples of TEDx's that haven't adhered to the guidelines. TEDx content guidelines. TED offers speakers a platform to provide information directly to millions of people around the world. It's a responsibility we take seriously. First and foremost, that information has to be accurate at the time of publication. All right, fair enough. Learn more about TED's content guidelines. Now that's TED. We're at TEDx. As stewards of ideas worth spreading. Ooh, I like that. Well, I guess I'm not. Until I do a TEDx talk, I guess I'm not a steward, but maybe I'm a curator of the stewards of ideas worth spreading. TEDx organizers share in this responsibility of maintaining TED's reputation as a forum for sharing ideas that matter and upholding our audience's trust. Curation, yes, is at the heart of everything we do, and sometimes that means determining that an idea is not fit for the TEDx stage. At this stage of the game, after NF trees, I really have to wonder what is or is not fit for the TEDx stage. How about plastic made out of cow's blood? What about that one? What about the ritual for peace and stability or whatever, where the guy was basically going the scenic route around apologizing for being an abusive husband and or father? We put together these content guidelines and a fact-checking guide to help you plan your TEDx event. Our intention is not to be directive. Then what's the point? But to provide the community with a practical set of standards and a publishing policy that ensure every audience member can trust the ideas they're hearing. If your intention is not to be directive, then why is there a determination to be made about what is or is not fit for the TEDx stage? Okay. It's inherently difficult to give hard and fast rules in this area. Well, I'll grant you that. We're learning as we go, Yeah, TEDx is an evolutionary process. I agree. So these guidelines will likely change over time as we run into new challenges. In this way, we can all preserve the integrity and value of the TED and TEDx stages throughout the world. Ah yes, the TEDx stage, a bastion of integrity. Yes, integrity. Thank you, Gay Rascal. Hello, fellow sufferers. Hail to the king of sufferers, our martyr scribe. I'm no martyr. I'm, I don't know. What is, let's see, a martyr, something, my vocabulary fails me. I know. Shocking. King of sufferers. I have too much fun. I have too much fun to be suffering. But I appreciate a Gay Rascal. Either way. Let's see. Oh, P-Dog Knight is here. P-Dog Knight. Dog Thrapple. If you guys are not watching the Morning Night Live at, usually 7 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the P-Dog Knight channel, you should be. So there you go. Gay Rascal suggests guinea pig. I might be a guinea pig. That might be true. But, let's see. What's this? They wouldn't post Michaela Peterson. Oh yeah, I heard about that. She gave a talk on how going completely carnivore solved her health issues, same with her family, and she would like science to look into this more. The end. Great talk. Well, that's just her opinion, man. And TEDx is no place for simply opinions. As we all know. All right, so anyway, on to the guidelines. Guideline number 1. I haven't read these. I have not read this document yet. I have not. Guideline number 1. No commercial agendas. Are you kidding me? Have you watched your own Okay. All right. Wait. Let's go back to the pair of ladies who were up on the stage selling pants with a zipper in the back for women to go hiking so they could relieve themselves on the go. Or what about the guy who was selling the app that was going to connect donors with artists? Or what about the guy who was selling the app that was supposed to be a replacement for voting in national politics? No commercial agendas. Okay, well, I'll also admit this. I have no idea, because there wasn't any reference to it, I have no idea how old this content document is, or this guideline document is. Okay, so maybe this is some early version, and they've changed it since then. I'll have to verify that at some point, but just for ye old fun. Guideline number 1, no commercial agendas. If it's essential to a talk that the speaker mentions what they do and describe the businesses that they're in, they should. Okay, yes, if it's relevant to the presentation or to their credentials in presenting it, yes. But speakers may never use the TED or TEDx stage to pitch their products or services, plug their books, or ask for funding. Okay, I really hope this is an old version of the guidelines. Because if this was actually enforced, how many of the things we've looked at would just not be there? Okay, while entrepreneurs and business leaders can speak at TEDx events, their talk should be driven by an idea and not sell from the stage. Okay, a TEDx event is not a platform for professional or circuit speakers. Are you sure about that? Such as motivational speakers and professional life coaches. Are you sure about that? It's a fine line between shameless self-promotion and wholesome self-reporting, so as a rule of thumb, if it feels like an advertisement, it probably is. Well, I'll tell you what, TEDx. I wouldn't have a square on my bingo card for sales pitch for product or service if your forum did not frequently allow such things to occur. Frequently. Guideline number 2. Jeez. No political agendas or inflammatory rhetoric. Okay, let's look at a couple of your diversity presentations on inflammatory rhetoric. Let's look at a couple of your educational speakers on no political agendas and climate change or other such things. Anyway, politics, social issues, and policy are key parts of the global conversation. However, TEDx stages are not the place for partisan politics, nor for extremist or inflammatory positions, apparently like a carnivore diet. Speakers must not attack or advocate for parties, party platforms, and political leaders in their talk. I guess you can skirt around that without getting that explicit, can't you? Okay. They must not advocate for violence or oppression. Well, I would hope not, but you know. Advise speakers to focus on discussing concrete problems and solutions. Well, it's the solutions part that I often do not hear. I have problems described to me quite a bit. Solutions, not as often. Special care should also be taken with politically divisive subjects, you do say. E.g. abortion, gun control. Oh, okay. Well, how about race equality? How about diversity? How about restorative justice? How about voting rights? Okay. So as to avoid polarizing us versus them language. Oh, like our speaker, 3 or 4 TEDx's back, where he was talking about his Pacific Islander ethnicity and how anything that was too white was bad. But let's get away from binaries. That guy? Okay. Instead, speakers should focus on consensus building and nuanced discussion. Consideration should also be given to any content that may carry negative connotations for other parts of our global audience. Okay. Negative connotations for other parts of our global audience. So, if someone is on the stage criticizing, I don't know, let's say female genital mutilation, just as an example, isn't that demonizing certain parts of your global audience for their beliefs and practices? Would you disallow someone from talking on that subject then, I wonder? I mean, you haven't. I've seen it a couple of times now, but I just wonder. Speaking of which, guideline number 3, no religious agendas. I think I might find a few out if I was looking for them. I can't say that I've looked at too many that have that possess that explicitly, but don't book speakers who attempt to prove or persuade the correctness of a single religion, deity, or other belief system, such as atheism or agnosticism. Or other belief system? Atheism is a belief system? Oh, okay. Whether through rhetoric or scientific proof, quote-unquote. Be wary of speakers promoting New Age beliefs, including concepts such as quantum consciousness, Gaia theory, archaeoastronomy, and drug-induced spiritual epiphanies. Speakers can be honest about their beliefs, but should not use the stage to promote them or to denigrate those who don't share them. Okay, I have seen on multiple occasions TEDx presentations posted to their YouTube page that carry the warning, this talk falls outside of our guidelines of religious agendas, whatever else, and someone's talking some woo-woo New Age stuff. I mean, how... Obviously, they do not strictly adhere to these things as far as promoting them on their YouTube page. But these are the guidelines apparently they send to the people organizing the events in the first place. And apparently, they don't care about them either. So if you have guidelines, which aren't really rules, but guidelines you're not going to enforce, even though you say that some things don't belong on the stage, what is the point of having the guidelines? Okay. Guideline 4. No bad science. Okay. TED offers scientists and other experts a platform to provide scientific information directly to millions of people around the world. Learn more about TED's science standards. Or we're not at TED, are we? Science is a big part of the TED universe, and it's important that TEDx organizers sustain our reputation as a credible forum for sharing ideas that matter. Like NF trees. It's not always easy to distinguish between science and pseudoscience. Depends. And the more willing a speaker is to abandon scientific underpinning, the easier it is for them to make attention-grabbing claims. Yeah, like plants managing their own bank accounts. I'm not kidding. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, just go to my channel, check back a couple of TEDx's. Look for the thumbnail about plants wearing pants. This is especially true for talks that call on science for support, but do not come directly from the scientists themselves. This is why it's always important to have some idea, hopefully, of the credentials of your speaker as it relates to the subject they're talking about in the TEDx talk. If they bring it up. If they don't, sometimes. Claims made using scientific language should, 1, be testable experimentally. Okay, this is a lot to put on the shoulders of somebody organizing a TEDx event. So, I appreciate any efforts that someone might give to vetting the presentations before they approve them, but all the same, okay, I guess it depends on the credibility of the individual. Number 2, have been published in a peer-reviewed, respected journal. Okay. I suppose you could require that they add these things for references when they propose their presentation. Excuse me. Be based on theories that are also considered credible by experts in the field. Be backed up by experiments that have generated enough data to convince other experts of its legitimacy. It's interesting that they require, or at least encourage people to do this much checking and vetting on presentations regarding scientific experiments and things. It's too bad they don't do that for most of the other presentations, where they make a claim about the reality of the world as far as sociology or politics or whatever, and then they either don't provide any statistics or provide very thin statistics. Have proponents who are secure enough to acknowledge areas of doubt and need for further investigation. Okay. Not fly in the face of the broad existing body of scientific knowledge. Be presented by a speaker who has the right scientific qualifications. Yes. That is something that I at least hope they would do as boilerplate in these things. It's like, I'm going to give a talk on violence in media. Great. What are your credentials? I have a degree in microbiology. I think this might be a mismatch. Something like that. But oftentimes, no. I had a... what was it? It was a lady who had a degree in gender studies, and she was giving a talk on sexism in the video game industry. And she'd never worked in the video game industry, but she was talking very stridently about how things work within the video game industry, never having worked there. Yeah. Show clear respect for the scientific method and scientific thinking generally. Okay. Claims made using scientific language should not. Oh, scientific language? Oh. Be so obscure or mysterious as to be untestable. Be considered ridiculous by credible scientists in the field. Be based on experiments that cannot be reproduced by others. Be based on data that do not convincingly corroborate the experimenter's theoretical claims. Come from overconfident advocates. Use oversimplified interpretations of legitimate studies. Yeah, what about the inherent bias test? We came across that not too long ago, I don't think. I did a whole video on that. Include imprecise vocabulary. Phrases like quantum consciousness, personal energy fields, crystal healing, and the like should be considered major red flags. You don't say. Abandon evidence-based thinking or be dismissive of the scientific method. Okay, well, admittedly, I don't look at very often any hard science subjects in the TEDx's I present. But there is a lot of data and statistics and theories and conclusions thrown around by the speakers, oftentimes that feel a little thin, like on ice, so to speak. Next up, TEDx publishing policy. Oh, okay. At TED, our goal is to spread ideas, and our shared mission with TEDx organizers... Wait, our goal is to spread ideas. And our shared... Okay, awkward sentence in my head. Let's try that again. At TED, our goal is to spread ideas. Maybe a comma? And our shared mission with TEDx organizers is to curate ideas worth spreading. Together we can create high-quality content for a positive impact on TEDx's global community. Well, I like to think that I contribute to the high-quality content of TEDx's global community by offering oftentimes sardonic and sarcastic commentary, but whatever. Although TEDx organizers curate talks independently for their live events, those talks become videos that constitute a large, growing digital archive online. Oh, do I know? As curators and brand stewards, TEDx organizers are responsible for ensuring that every talk at their event complies with the terms of the TEDx license as described in the TEDx content guidelines, of which we're reading right now, and TEDx copyright guidelines. Well, I'll tell you what, you are not enforcing that responsibility at all. Because if you put up videos where you put a content warning ahead of time telling us that the talk falls outside of the guidelines, then it doesn't matter whether or not you follow the guidelines or not, does it? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm happy that you guys have no filter, because it allows so much strange stuff to come through. But really, if you have a standard of quality for these things, you should enforce it. And encourage it more stridently than this. I think that's the second time I've used stridently. I hate repeating myself. Like when I'm writing and I use the same word in the same paragraph. A particular word, like a very descriptive word or something. It annoys me. I wish I could go back and edit that, but I can't, so anyway. Your level of compliance with these terms and cooperation with the TED team may influence the status of your license or your eligibility for future licenses. If you suspect a speaker at your event overstepped a guideline, please reach out to TEDx@TED.com directly to let us know about it. What happens then? Please do not submit the talk for review. We will review the content together and make a decision about how to proceed. If you think only a small part of the talk is non-compliant, we will advise you on whether or not it is possible to edit it in post-production before submitting to the uploader. Oh, I always wonder, when I come across editing moments, obviously, moments in the video that have, obviously there's a jump or a skip or some kind of fade in or fade out or something that I didn't put there because I don't edit the things. I always wonder, why is that? So those might have been presentations that contained questionable material, but were still allowed to go through. Huh. Okay. TED reserves the right to remove, reject, annotate, or limit the distribution of any TEDx talk. Yeah, and even put TEDx talks on the TED YouTube channel and play them off like they're new content for TED, even though they're a TEDx talk that I reviewed years previous or something. This has happened many, many times, actually. While we put our best effort into reviewing all talks before publishing, the volume of submissions and diversity of language means we are unable to watch every single talk before publication. Okay. Fair enough. However, the team may reach out to you for the references and supporting documentation you or your speaker collected during the fact check or clearing use of copyrighted material. If you are unable to provide adequate documentation to support the contents of the talk, and depending on the severity of the violation of TEDx guidelines, the talk may get published with a note from TED's editors, removed from search results, and in extreme cases, TED may remove or not publish the video altogether. In some instances, TED may ask you to edit and resubmit for review. But what if you're gonna... Oh my god. What's the point of having the guidelines if you know something falls outside of them in such a substantial way that you're going to put a warning up in front? Why have it up there? I mean, the thing about TEDx that I appreciate is the fact that anything and everything you can think of has somebody doing a talk on it. Pretty much. I mean, if there's a subject that you're interested in, it's out there somewhere. And I appreciate all the zaniness and weird stuff that comes out of TEDx because, honestly, it's more interesting that way. But, speaking pragmatically, as a professional, why bother having this stuff? I mean, obviously you adhere to them a little bit because I see edits take place at times, and I obviously see those disclaimers being put up. But, loosey-goosey standards. It's no wonder that TED and TEDx as an outgrowth have become kind of a joke of themselves over the last, 10, 15 years or so. Because TED used to be like top of the heap, cream of the crop. You didn't get on a TED Talk unless you were like, a Nobel Prize winner or something, or some obvious expert in a field. Now it's like anybody and their brother can throw their hat in the ring, even if it's just like, I'm going to turn blood into plastic. Like, ugh. If a talk was credible at publication, but new research has proven otherwise, TED will most likely add a note from the editor and limit its availability in search results. Only in select cases will the talk be removed from the TEDx YouTube channel. Okay, well, that's fair enough. If a TEDx speaker no longer wants their talk available online for any reason, please reach out to directly to let us know about it, and we will take the necessary steps to remove the talk from the TEDx YouTube channel. Well, in a couple of cases, I reviewed TEDx talks that had been removed from the internet because, they were controversial in some way, shape, or form, or proven to be completely false in some way. The one that I still can't find a copy of is the TEDx talk where the convicted murderer went up on a stage and was basically more or less begging for better treatment in prison for himself, but doing it roundabouts the ways of prison rights and prison reform and things like that. I'm not necessarily seeking that one out, but I looked for it, still can't find a copy. Even if I did, I don't know if I'd give the guy any more, status than he already possesses in that sense, but I was curious. We take the privacy of TEDx speakers very seriously, so even though all speakers have signed a speaker release agreeing to TED, if a talk contains copyrighted material, okay. All right, TEDx fact-checking guide. Oh boy, what is fact-checking, and why does it matter? You might as well go interrogate CNN on that one. Fact-checking means going through a script's empirical claims, basically anything that can be verified in the real world, and making sure that they are as accurate as possible. This is obviously something that almost never occurs in TEDx talks. There are real consequences to the talks you produce, since people will often change their behavior based on a talk that they watch. It's true. My behavior often goes from completely calm and rational to anyway, so you want to be sure that you are not accidentally sharing misinformation or disinformation on your TEDx stage. It protects the reputations of you, the speaker, the event, and TED at large. Well, it hasn't worked. Getting started, what do you check? Check any detail or claim that relies on external information. This can take the shape of something like a quote, anything with a number, dates, statistics, estimates, references to research, the findings of a study or a survey, and pretty much all general claims. Basically, if it can be checked, it should be checked. I agree. I 100% agree. It is hilarious that never seems to take place. The exception to this is a statement that falls within the realm of a speaker's own opinion. E.g., I think this will happen, unquote, since this is their own personal speculation. However, a speaker's personal opinion doesn't preclude it from needing to be fact-checked. Maintain caution when the speaker uses their own opinion, since the evidence supporting the assertion or argument must still be evaluated. If there is a portion of a speaker's talk that refers to a personal experience or anecdote, you may want to ask for sourcing on that as well to ensure accuracy. Some of the things that can be helpful to verify accuracy of anecdotes include full names, ages, and geographic locations of other individuals referred to in the talk, even if their full names do not appear in your talk. Contact info for individuals who can attest to that portion of the talk, documentation from that period of time such as emails, medical records, or other records. Okay, you're starting to get slightly into that might be TMI for a TEDx organizer, but all the same, yes, it would be nice. Beach Boys, wouldn't it be nice if they did such things? Isn't it more entertaining that they seemingly never do? Oh well. A fact checklist. Oh, okay. How do you know if there are problems with a speaker's talk? Well, my first clue is that it's on TEDx, but hey. As a quick guide, here are some questions that will help you figure out if there are issues with a speaker's talk. If you answer yes to any of these questions, there's a good chance that the talk contains questionable and or flaggable content. Are you ready, guys? Are you ready? What are problems? Number 1, are there generalizations, e.g. most, absolutes, e.g. all, and vague references, e.g. research shows, unquote? These wordings can suggest that everyone agrees when they don't, and they can have a big impact on how people see a topic. Generalizations, absolutes, and vague references can be easily fixed with words like many, or phrases like scientists at Columbia found XYZ, either of which can greatly improve a talk's accuracy. Many. How many is many? Like, I always ask that. How many times have you guys heard me say that when somebody says many scientists say or something like many studies show? Like, well, how many is many? That's still a vague reference. That's still a generalization. I mean, you point out most as a generalization that should be a red flag, but then you say that many is a fix. Okay? All right. Does the talk highlight a lot of numbers from multiple sources? Boy, howdy! Every reference varies in how it collects and analyzes data, so drawing comparisons between references can be challenging, even for experienced researchers. How often have we seen that very thing? Chart after chart after chart. Or, even worse, a chart that has no reference. Is the talk promising a revolutionary solution or business product for a tangible problem which exists in society? Oftentimes, the answer is yes. I can think of my first World Without Prisons, my World Without Prisons video. That was was it Dina or Deanna Van Buren? The very first one. She's like, how can we solve this? How about we eliminate prisons? It can be easy to accidentally overextend the implications of conclusions of your results to date. Implications of conclusions? Or conclude? Okay. Especially if those results aren't yet public. Talks which feature magical solutions or products that claim to solve, rather than simply fight against existing problems, are a red flag. Yeah, they are. And they often make up a good portion of some of my content. This issue may require small phrasing changes to help protect the speaker and the audience/viewers from miscommunication of the idea. If the idea is not based in reality, your selection of vocabulary is not going to improve it. It may better uncover the fact that it isn't based in reality, but okay. Is the speaker suggesting new ways to treat health problems? Well, we did the one with Ranting Monkey and I, where it was asparagus stalks used as a lattice to help heal spinal cord injuries. Remember that one? That was actually a very compelling one. I don't know the accuracy of the guy's claims, obviously, but the presentation itself was pretty solid. Science and health-related scripts should be held to high scrutiny, yes. If any talk highlights research with health implications, you need to make sure that the research is up-to-date, peer-reviewed, and consistent with the rigorous guidelines outlined by the scientific method. All right. Actually, the guy, I got copyright claimed on the asparagus video. The guy, the scientist, I guess, or whoever he represents, claimed it on me. Is a speaker taking credit for all of the work behind an idea without acknowledging collaborators? Well, I don't know. I mean, if you stand up on a stage and call yourself as representative of your entire demographic, or representative of, or the inheritor of generations of trauma, does that count? I don't know. Published research or projects often rely on the contributions of others, and so the speakers should make an effort to acknowledge other collaborators or partners wherever possible. I agree. Did the speaker forget to acknowledge any counter-arguments to or limitations of the idea? Forget? I think consciously exclude might usually be the rule of thumb on that one, given how many times I've brought up that very subject on these TEDx's, but yeah. A strong talk idea takes into account at least some of its own weaknesses. Does it? Well, it should, but I rarely see that happen. If counter-arguments or limitations aren't mentioned, the speaker may not be providing an honest representation of the idea, you don't say. Remember, the talk is the best opportunity to address questions about the idea. And if the speaker doesn't address the questions, others may do it in the comments section for them, or on reaction commentary videos such as my own. Just recently, I can think back to the thumbnail said something to the effect of giving it the old DEI college try or something, college DEI. And the presenter actually gave us an example of opposition to her idea from the staff and faculty of the college she was talking about. And she put it up on the screen, and she mentioned that it existed. And she never returned to it to actually address any of their stated concerns. In fact, most of the stuff she was talking about after that point pretty much confirmed their worries. It was a bizarre part of the presentation that you would actually bring up opposition to your idea, but actively not address it. The Gay Rascal, thanks so much. Insert WTF jingle. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, we come across this all the time. I mean, if there was a litmus test for how often or how effectively TEDx organizers are actually applying these guidelines and being strict about it, my series kind of proves it all nonsense, doesn't it? And if the speaker doesn't address the questions... oh yeah, sorry, the comment section, that's right. I read that part. Okay. Is it unclear what stage the research is in? A talk can highlight the potential of research or work underway. However, it shouldn't imply or make unclear that the work is already in its final stage if it's still early in testing. The speaker should responsibly distinguish between where exactly the idea is and where they hope it will go. Yeah, admittedly, I haven't looked at too many talks that went to a specific scientific theory or idea. There have been a few, a handful. So I can't say too much about that off the top of my head. But I've looked at a few science-based ones in the past, and I think I always had some questions. I think there were always some room to maneuver there. Let's see. Sources to avoid. What makes a reference unreliable? I don't know. Unverifiable, maybe? Perhaps? There are a lot of sources and websites available for you and speakers to review, but not all sources are created equally. To help with finding the right ones for a talk, here are some common warning signs that you can watch out for. Is the author unknown? Yeah, if you don't cite your sources, and I've brought that up a lot of times. Wikipedia can be helpful, but mainly as a portal to help you track down the original source of the information, not as a primary source in and of itself. It's true. Very true. Tertiary sources like encyclopedias can give background on a topic or point you towards other sources, but these sources shouldn't be the references you cite because you cannot know who wrote the entry. This also applies to articles published in news outlets unless they attribute where they got their information and you're able to follow it to the source and verify its accuracy, or institutions that are not transparent about their funding. For example, a marketing wing for a for-profit company that releases research about the benefits of the product they produce. I'm reminded of the TEDx about the comedian lady on the stage talking about rape jokes. And she cited an article that she said quoted Donald Trump as making light of the subject, or something to that effect. When in fact, the actual text on the screen of the article she was quoting was not a quote from Donald Trump. It was from his lawyer. It was right there, but she said that Donald Trump said that. It was bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. That's one of my older TEDx's, one of the scripted ones. You have to look that one up, I think. Let's see. Do you know where the data really comes from? It's always good to know where your source got its information. One common problem is rooted in data holes. Yeah, okay. Information cited across multiple sources with no clear indication as to where it originated from. To help avoid falling into this hole, it's good for you to be skeptical of statistics that seem to be used everywhere but never lead back to the place that generated them. Well, I often am. A reputable source will share the methodology of how it arrived at the info and could share such things as how many people were surveyed, where they were located, the time period over which the information was gathered, and whether there were any factors that could undermine the findings. Yes, but will your average TEDx speaker ever offer any information that might undermine their own example? Now, this is an important one, and I'm not surprised it's in their content guidelines, which seem to be, far more meticulous than anything that's actually applied to the presentations. But yeah, how often have we seen somebody get up on the stage and give us this glowing idea, glowing review, pie in the sky, utopian whatever, but never even visit upon the obvious counterpoints that might exist, or just something you could come up off the top of your head, as I have on countless occasions. But yet they still get the stage, and I'm happy for it, I suppose. Is there an identifiable bias? Is there an identifiable bias? Have you read some of the titles of these things? Have you listened to any of them? Oh, man. Beware of agendas from your sources and the institutions with which they are associated. Yeah, especially if the speaker is themselves a sycophant to those agendas. A general rule of thumb to follow is that if it feels like a source is trying to sell you something, it probably is. Try to look for citations that acknowledge corrections and conflicts of interest, that make a reasonable effort to highlight other perspectives, and that state the sources behind their content's funding. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Oh boy, we're on page 7 of 9. Do we want to go through the rest of this? This is getting kind of dry. Stick to the original source. What makes a citation reliable? Strong sources can be pretty difficult to find. Indeed, there are a lot of variables that you need to consider when evaluating claims and research, far more than we have room to cover here. However, a good sample of the most important variable to consider in what makes a citation reliable include the following. Is the source primary or secondary? How strong is the author's credibility? How old is the source? Well, I'll tell you what, if half the time the people on the stage actually provided that information with the statistics they're giving us, I might feel at least better about it, or feel like, well, I could look that up and double check it. But oftentimes, even if they do that, they end up mischaracterizing the information they are presenting and don't give the actual extra information that gives it context. So, yeah, they might put up a completely legitimate source, but then frame it in the way that is most pleasing to their presentation. Topics to avoid. Oh boy, why is it so difficult to fact-check certain ideas? We've found that some topics seem to be particularly problematic because they are difficult or impossible to substantiate. We recommend approaching these with skepticism and, more often than not, avoiding them altogether. Healing, including naturopathy, alternative medicine, self-healing, energy fields, and energy balance. I've seen a few of those out there, and they're obvious, and you guys put up your disclaimers. Paranormal. I don't know about that one. I guess it depends on what you're talking about. I mean, I suppose you could categorize many of the subjects I look at as paranormal in the sense that oftentimes it requires a giant faith-based system to work through those things, but okay. Quantum physics, yeah, not so much. Denial of anthropogenic climate change. Denying the human causes of climate change, global warming, or misrepresenting valid climate models and predictions is irresponsible and wrongfully undermines the robust existing body of data and knowledge on the subject. I guess it depends on how you would classify that, because earlier on in this document, you said that you should, always have the counterpoint, right? At least a legitimate talk is going to have the counterpoint. All right. Could you have a talk that challenges certain theories on climate change, but still acknowledges the studies that exist and the data that's present? Like, what if the talk itself follows all the guidelines, but is titled or has something to do with somebody standing on a stage and giving an alternate perspective on the subject? You just deny them outright? Not even give them the stage to give their opinion? Or their analysis? Okay. Topics to approach with caution. Oh. How do you share ideas about health and medicine responsibly? I don't know. You tell me, especially when it comes to mental health. I mean, there are some things that are more empirical than others, but mental health's the one that I'm always kind of off on. Let's see. Nutrition, cancer treatments, experimental therapies, epigenetics, mental health, and suicide. Okay, that's the one that I've come across more than anything else. Talk should not oversimplify or undermine the complexity and severity of mental health conditions like anxiety, depression, and PTSD. I guess it depends on which talk we're talking about, because when I hear about toxic masculinity, and the rate of male suicide, I don't know, it kind of undermines the whole thing when they kind of chalk it up to just being a man first and foremost. But what do I know? Talk should not share prescriptive advice and non-evidence-based methods on how to cure or treat mental illness. I agree. Personal mental health experiences should never be used as anecdotal evidence to support prescriptive claims. I guess it depends on what talk we're talking about, because I've had more than a few talks where the speaker is giving a personal mental health experience as evidence or example in their presentation. Now, is it always about some kind of cure? Maybe not cure, but maybe like some opinion on what should be done to help with such a thing when it comes to, like, say, sexuality or gender identity or, like I say, toxic masculinity. Okay. These topics are a special concern when talks make claims about overcoming mental illness through lifestyle choices that target and stigmatize youth. What? These topics are of special concern when talks make claims about overcoming mental illness through lifestyle choices that target and stigmatize youth. Stigmatize youth? You mean like the boys part of toxic masculinity? You guys really need to take a harder look at what some of the speakers are talking about on those stages. If this is a concern of yours, I've seen plenty of evidence that shows that you guys aren't really sticking to these things. You have somebody standing up on a stage telling the entire audience that people are inherently flawed from birth on the basis of what they are, that they have no control over, and this is going to contribute to a likelihood of suicide or terrible lifestyles. Yeah, you might want to think about that. Tips for working with speakers. Okay. Working with speakers to improve the quality of their talks is crucial, but can certainly be a delicate situation. Here are some tips to help you and your speaker uphold the content guidelines. Yes, tell us how you uphold these guidelines. Focus on the how, not the wow. We want talks to be interesting, but they must be credible first and foremost. Really? Okay. Determining credibility and steering clear of bad information can be difficult to achieve, especially when the speaker and their ideas are compelling. We strongly encourage TEDx organizers to curate speakers who can deliver talks that are more focused on how they formulated their idea, rather than trying to wow an audience with unfounded claims. Again, seems to me, oftentimes, not adhered to. Fact-checking is a non-negotiable. Okay, what are the consequences, TEDx, I would ask? What are the consequences? Because I have about 5 some odd years of experience and evidence of these guidelines not being adhered to by the TEDx organizers. If fact-checking is a non-negotiable, what's the fallout from so many of these presentations that obviously have giant holes in what they're talking about? From the beginning, make it clear that for the speaker to be a part of your event, they must be willing to modify their talk script, if necessary, to meet your fact-checking standards. Oh! So now the fact-checking standards fall upon the organizer of the event, not those that you presented in this document. Thank you, Keldrig. TEDx, I promise to do the opposite of everything I just said. You know, the more I read this, and with my archive of personal experience on the subject, this looks more and more like nothing but window dressing and CYA material. Because it's obviously not upheld. Thank you, Keldrick. Ask speakers to send you their sources. Since speakers write their own talks, they should be able to provide you with valid sources to verify every claim. Yeah, you just talked about that earlier. Resistance to fact-checking can signal problems later down the road, you don't say. Be thoughtful in your selection of speakers. In addition to the many ways to go about speaker selection, evaluate speakers, at least in part, on their ability to collaborate and handle constructive criticism. Oh, baby. Some of the speakers, I would love to be a fly on the wall if they ever received constructive criticism. Never assume a speaker who is an expert or a famous person doesn't need to be fact-checked. Oh yeah? Hey Ted, tell me about Lizzo. Tell me about the Lizzo talk, just as a off-the-top-of-my-head example. How about the Lizzo talk? Did you guys fact-check that? That was a TED talk, by the way. That wasn't a TEDx talk. That was a TED talk. Did you check that whole story she had? About her clubbing experience when she was younger and all that? You know, and the rest of the stuff that she was talking about. Did you check that? Okay. After fact-checking the speaker's script, be specific in providing feedback. For claims that could not be corroborated by sufficient or legitimate evidence, explain what you need from them for the claim to be up to muster. Do they need to rephrase a claim or remove a generalization? Do they need to provide a different source? Tell the speaker exactly what needs to be done and keep the process moving along. And that, as they say, is the end of that. So, I skimmed over a couple of sections just because this went on far longer than I imagined it would. And yeah, there's a lot of minutia that, again, obviously TEDx, the organizers thereof, and the people in control of the YouTube page don't really care about at the end of the day. At least I'll just say that from my own personal experience. I don't have any insider knowledge or anything. But anyway, there you go. It was enlightening for me. I hope it was enlightening for you. I'll keep this in mind the next time we do a TEDx, which happens to be this coming Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, for another episode of TED Excellence, where I'll take a look at another oft-brand TED Talk to see how it conforms to the content guidelines. Also, there'll be bingo, if you like bingo. But beyond that, everybody, I'm going to wrap this up here. Thank you all for joining me for this walk down the winding road of TEDx guidelines. Oh, the Gay Rascal, thank you so much. We should all ask the speakers for their sources. We should. I mean, technically, but that's up to the organizer. The organizer is the person in charge, but I'll be honest, which is always a weird thing to say, but even after having read this, and as I mentioned before, I am happy with the way TEDx conducts its business right now. Honestly. I would rather have a completely open forum for whatever, anything, and anybody wants to say about a particular subject. I want to hear the fringe ideas. I want to hear the wingnuts on one side of the aisle or the other. I don't care. I just want to know what people are thinking. I want to know what ideas are out there, because here's the thing. Things I saw and heard about only from Tumblr several years ago that I thought were nutty and fringe and would never make it to the mainstream are now common parlance. If there is a canary in the coal mine for what will become the next big thing, I think TEDx is it. And I think we've seen examples of that over the years. So I'm fine. These are the guidelines. It's hilarious that they have them when they don't adhere to them, but I'm happy that they don't. I'm happy that they don't. Because TEDx's reputation means less to me than the flow of information and ideas that comes from it. So, there you go, everybody. That's it. Hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you all have a good rest of your Tuesday. I'm so reflexive in saying the days of the week that I actually usually broadcast on that saying something else is a little off. Have a good rest of your Tuesday. Everybody, thank you for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very little to do. Everybody who donated, thank you so much for your generosity. Hope you all have a good rest of your Tuesday, as I just said, because I'm repetitive like that. Hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.